Wow.
Yeah, and now click record to the cloud, and then you guys are good to go.
We are good. We're live.
Once it says recorded to the cloud.
It's good.
All right. Welcome RRC on this beautiful Monday in August. It's August 11th, and Greg Hanner and I are here. Greg is the 2025 president-elect, so he's getting ready to be installed for 2026. So we're excited about that. Our 2025 leadership team, we have Marie and Fran as our regional vice president, and Courtney, Darlene, Quincy, and Cherie, and Christine McClellan are our chairs and our Rhode Island network director. Ryan, Christina, Caitlin, Rachel, Nora, and Jamie are also part of our leadership team, as are Vicky, Brenda, Yolanda, Ashley, and Joanna. So we're very excited that we have this awesome leadership team this year, and we've been doing a lot of exciting events. We also have several 2025 strategic partners. Joe Sullivan's with us today, and Annie Mack is the our platinum strategic partner, and our gold are Coast to Coast with Nicole, Gaffney Law, and Chris is from Gaffney Law, Cross Country Mortgage, Leader Blank, MLS PIN, Clark Hill Inspections, Rocket Mortgage, Statera Law, and again, I said Joe O'Sullivan's here with us today, Starburst as well, and G-Bar. So we're very thankful for all of our strategic partners and appreciative of them. This week, we have our RRC New England Boot Camp in Portsmouth. On the 13th, we're going to have a networking event the night before at the 110 Grill. And we're looking forward to be networking together. And Nicole from Coast to Coast Closing is going to be sponsoring that as well. And on the 14th, we're going to be doing a mastermind and going through different ideas, talking about the market, talking about, what's happening in all the real estate world, and giving ideas of different things that we can do as CRS members and just as agents in general. So that's going to be exciting. Todd Cook from Annie Mac and Kim Stone from Rocket Mortgage are going to be attending with us. And I believe that Nicole may be there as well from Coast to Coast. So we're looking forward to that. If you haven't signed up yet, be sure to sign up, and it should be a wonderful day. On September 25th, we're going to have an event in Salem, New Hampshire at Par 28, where we're going to be axe throwing. So that might be a little bit dangerous. So we'll see how that goes. Some golf simulators, and of course, we're going to have food, networking, and some drinks. So it should be a great night on September 25th. Some of our other events that we've got in Maine, we're going to be on September 17th, having Addie Owens come and talk to us about becoming or being a power lister. We're going to have, it's a 4-hour class, and then we're going to have lunch afterwards. On October 15th, there's a broker summit in Norwood, Mass. And we'll be attending that. And then afterwards, we'll be having some cocktails and more food at the, it's a bar pub at the hotel that the broker summit is going to be at. And then on October 21st, co-sponsored with Vermont, we're going to be doing a divorce specialist certification class. It's an 8-hour class. It's going to be online, so you can do that all virtually from the comfort of your home and talk about divorce. Isn't that exciting? And on November 12th, we're going to be having a happy hour down in Houston, Texas, where the NER RRC convention is going to be held. So we're looking forward to that too, talking to other RRC members across the country. And on December 4th, we're going to be doing our installation in Waterford, Connecticut. So Greg is going to be getting installed, and we're going to be introducing the 2026 leadership team. So those are all exciting events that are coming up. Today, we have Joe O'Sullivan here. He is an attorney, owner, partner of Statera Law, and he is going to talk to us about some different clauses to put in for contingencies, where you find that language, talk about title issues a little bit, and how we as realtors can help streamline the process. And if we have questions after, he's going to go through a little presentation, and then we'll have some time for our questions. You can see Joe's experience and different things he's done on the right side of the screen. And, obviously he does a lot of things to help the community, and we appreciate him, and he's got a lot of experience, does a great job. I've worked with him personally, and I know that many other members have as well. And so, Joe, if you want to take it away, I will stop sharing and you can share.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Michelle. Appreciate the introduction, and really glad to be here with the RRC. It's been a great group that I've been involved with now for a couple of years, and fun group, but also a group that means business, and I really enjoy learning along with the group, and it's glad to give back a little bit today. So thank you for having me. And I will try to do my screen share right now.
Good morning, Marie.
Good morning.
Actually, afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
All right, here we go. Okay, great. And I can still see you guys who are on the call, so that's great.
Looks good, Joe.
Awesome. And I know we don't have a luxury of a ton of time here today, so I'll try to knock out a few things real quick and allow for some follow-up and some questions after. But we are Statera Law. Our primary office is in Newton, Mass. We do have offices throughout the state of Massachusetts. And just a little quick blurb about myself, just live in West Roxbury nearby. Here's a picture of an event from last year, and there's a couple familiar faces, even people who are on this call right now. We have Marie Presti's on there, Caitlin DeCillo, who's on the call, and also Joanna Shalansky, who, we had a great day out last year, and there was an RRC event the night before. So we all made it and looking good considering that. So great to see everybody again here today. Jumping along, just a little bit of where we cover. We do cover the Northeast region, including Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, and now Maine. And a little bit about us. Of course, we've been doing this a long time, me and my two partners, each of us over 10 years of experience. And we do a little bit of commercial residential stuff, condo conversions. So if you ever have anything going on, please think of us as a resource. Always happy to connect. Give some free advice to any of the members. And of course, there's a lot of friends on these calls, and I'm sure they'll be watching this video. So please don't be shy. That's what we're here for. All right. So jumping into it a little bit and taking a little bit of the order of the things that Michelle brought up there. I figured a good way to do it is kind of how can you help with attorneys? And by touching on these, we'll touch on some of those other elements, whether it's contingencies, little nuances that come up, whether it's title or otherwise. So, recent examples is always a way I like to teach, and it's a continuing learning curve, even for attorneys, when the market can shift or different circumstances can arise. And not everything is always plug and play, but of course you come up with similar scenarios that you see over and over. It's nice to touch on those a little bit. So jumping right in, a couple of familiar situations, and of course a lot of folks on this call will be very experienced, a lot of very good experienced agents, so some of this will be very familiar to you and not necessarily directed to any of you that you don't do these things already. But condo docs, right? When me personally and a lot of attorneys, we like to be very diligent and make sure our clients are getting educated along the way. And when they're signing the purchase and sale agreement, feel really good with the investment that they're making with their property. And so, what can you do as a listing agent or even a buyer side agent? We're collecting budgets, meeting minutes, proof of reserves, the plans for the condo docs, whether it's the larger plans or the unit specific plans, confirming things like parking spaces and storage can become its own secondary sidetrack, as I'm sure many of you have experienced along the way. And those can be very valuable things. Parking spots in the city of Boston, for instance, I've seen things over the years. You could argue a parking spot's worth $50,000 or $250,000, or so there's a lot of value to be had there. And of course, you want to know as a buyer, what exactly are you getting? And I've seen situations where people list, 4 spots, but it's really 3 spots, right? And so you got to hash those things out. But having as much information at hand for the attorney to get started with is always helpful. The master deed, declaration of trust, whether there was any amendments over the years. If possible, contact with the HOA for things like assessments, what work has been completed or not completed. What are the plans coming up in the next year? Or is it something that's already voted on, or is there money set aside? So those are a variety of questions that can come up during the process in regards to condos, for instance. We can always save time if these items are brought up front to the attention of the attorneys. Another good thing to talk about, some recent scenarios with items and issues that I would call controllable, even though that's a very convenient thing to say, but it's not always so controllable. But a lot of things come up, particularly when you have, whether it's elderly folks are selling a home and their kids are helping out, or maybe someone has passed away. Maybe they haven't fully prepared for the scenarios that might come up next in listing and selling the house. So first one I'll touch on is it was a septic situation. Of course, the septic test was going to get done. The inspection was going to get done right after the signing of the PNS. And what happens, of course, it fails. Now it becomes a much bigger item to unpack. What's the timeline? What's the cost? Is it going to be a seller getting it done before closing, or is there going to be a scenario where maybe we do a holdback and close, but then the holdback scenario and the work gets done afterwards? So, obviously as a listing agent, if you can get that septic inspection done right away, you're probably going to save a lot of headaches and heartache for a lot of people along the way. And I'm encountering one of those right now, and we're looking at, probably it'll end up being 3 months delay to the original closing, and some of that controllable and some of it not so controllable. But when you're on the buyer side, that can be a very frustrating process to have to go through. And even though you anticipate that it could happen, when it does happen, it's a whole different ballgame, right? So that's just one item in preparation of sale. Estates licensed to sell. Is the estate planning attorney ready to go? And have they been connected with the real estate attorney? That can also lead to more efficient transactions. Had one recently where I was on the buyer side, and it was difficult because the seller's attorney and their estate planning attorney weren't really connecting very well, and it did lead to stress in the process and, again, delays to closing. So what can we do also here if you are going to list to sell? One thing we like to do, if you have, again, I'd say it's most common in these like estate scenarios or maybe elderly parents, doing a proactive title review. We'll do a title examination and then a title review of that examination for maybe $500. And you as a seller, and as kids maybe of the homeowner, you're going to list that property, and hey, we don't want to be held up for months. We don't want an unexpected curveball. Is it worth $500 to kind of know, hey, we're on track. When we go to list, this is not going to be an issue. We're going to have a clean title. All these boxes have been checked. So that is something that can be very useful, particularly when you have a property that's been owned for a very long time. You might have discharges of mortgage. There could be other liens, other items that you may not be aware of. And this does come up from time to time, and certainly can be an issue and can lead to delay. And while there can be fixes, it might be a situation where, again, holdback might be an option, or an indemnification from a title company. Things like that can be an option, but not always, because, it's not necessarily a clean title at the time of closing. So is a buyer going to be willing to take ownership? There's many degrees there of what's acceptable for closing or not, and some of it open to interpretation, some of it not so much. I had a really good example too of an inheritance situation on a multifamily property. And, wonderful people who for a couple of years were going through the probate process. And had already been exhausted, and the primary individual who had inherited the property was elderly themselves. That they were almost 80 years old. So managing that estate process became exhausting. And then when they went to list the property, what I unearthed through conversations and at the very beginning, it seemed like everything was fine with the tenants. But then, we got to the point where we needed to discuss estoppel certificates, and just a quick side tangent on what an estoppel certificate is. That's what when a tenant is going to sign a document confirming certain truths before closing. Things like there's no outstanding balances owed, there's no litigation between the landlord and the tenant, or other difficulties that, of course, a buyer is not going to want to inherit. And they want to know what they're inheriting when they take ownership of that property. So here, once we got to that stage, it turned out that there had been a lengthy history between these tenants who had been in the property for 15 years with the person who had passed away. So again, you had family members who were trying to clean these things up, stay on top of it, and find resolutions, and tenants who were difficult and to some degree leveraging the situation against these folks, and they didn't anticipate it. They didn't anticipate it to become a difficult situation where they basically felt like they were being taken advantage of, and that they had been good landlords for the period of time that they were in control of the property. So again, these are excellent things to bring to an attorney ahead of time. Say, hey, this is what we're looking at. What do you anticipate we're going to need for closing? And again, having just an open, honest conversation between the property owner and the listing agent, and the homeowner and the tenants, if it needs to be. And again, any good attorney should be hands-on and able to help you with some good pointers, depending on the circumstances that arrive at their desk. And then another item I listed here: building permits. Permitting is something that a lot of attorneys don't love jumping into, because it's a little bit of a gray area as to it's not necessarily black and white in the legal world, but really good examples of properties that I've had recently. And I always tell my buyers, hey, now's your chance, do your due diligence, check out the building department in the local town or city, see if there's any open permits, make sure things like square footage and number of bathrooms and the deck or the secondary structures, are they all permitted correctly? Know what you're buying, make sure you're getting what you think you're getting. And I've had examples in the past couple of years of property being listed as a 3-unit property, and then permitting gets looked into and it's only a 2-family. It was zoned for 3-family, but it was only permitted as a 2-family, right? So you're taking over as the buyer. You don't want to be on the hook for these fixes down the road. In that case, it ended up costing the seller about 15 grand to bring it up to a fully permitted 3-family structure. Obviously my buyers were relieved to know that they didn't inherit it in that condition or with that outstanding. Another good example was a finished basement, but it wasn't done professionally, no permits. And then, the question becomes, who did the electrical? Is this a safety issue? We're gonna have to reopen up walls and redo this ourselves. So those are just a couple of really good, examples of, again, proactive work. If you're the listing agent, you can, check, have your client check, have permits been closed out? Does the property look like it matches the town's history and the property card? And then as a buyer, same thing. Are you going to be buying and at the end of the day happy with what you're buying, and not on the hook for unexpected curveballs and costs and expenses to bring the property up to that standard that you're hoping for and anticipating buying. So those are great ways to be ahead of the game and to have the right parties in place earlier in the process, so you're not faced with delays and lengthy negotiations and difficulty, and sometimes it turns a very good transaction where everyone's happy into one where now people are butting heads and confrontational and trying to keep things on track, right? So there can be a lot of value here. You know, I always tell everyone I work with, don't be shy. You know, I'm very, very lucky. I deal with a lot of wonderful agents and lenders and others who are great communicators and, you know, tackle the issues head on. And you know, that's the way I like to approach it. And I think the best of the best agents out there too, I think approach it that way, right? To be ahead of the game as much as possible. So maybe it's a good time, and I hope I haven't lost track of time too much or rambled on for too long, because I know we're on a bit of a time crunch, but certainly happy to answer any questions or open it up to the floor, and I can get out of my screen share too. Let me know what you need.
Yeah, if you actually dump the screen share and then we can have an open conversation. You did a great there, Joe. And two things that stood out to me that you brought up was we as agents, I run into the HOA fees, especially when we're in budget season, when those changes are coming. It's just nice if an agent lets us know that, hey, there is a potential change happening to the HOA fee. It affects more of a lender than you as a closing agent. But how about those pet policies when, you know, they're not communicated and they're buried in, you know, 100 pages of HOA docs. I love the agents that'll take the time to hear right from the horse's mouth, no pun intended, about from the property manager, what is the current policy for pets? And when they put those in the listings, that's so helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Rentals, the rental rights is another big one. You know,
You're talking terms,
Oh yeah, in condo docs, and you know, the pets is absolutely right. You know, right on point. You know, the rental terms in the condo association is another one.
Yeah, no Airbnb.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And you know, and tenants and buyers, you know, they want to know, and just like you said, Greg, that they see 100 pages of condo docs. Where do you find that information? You know, we're used to it. We've seen them 100 times. So we
Right.
know pretty much right where to go to. And then if something's missing, it's like, hey, what's missing here? Seems like there should be more to the puzzle. But you're right. Even the best buyers out there who love torturing themselves with all that reading, still very hard to find it in the nitty gritty of those lengthy, sometimes very old documents.
Right. Where are you seeing the delays and hiccups and stress caused for transactions? Is it agents not giving you the updates if there's been changes to the purchase and sale, and you're just not giving them, and your CD comes up and it's different pricing? Where are your pain points right now?
Yeah, and do you mean as far as information from agents at the beginning?
Yeah. What can we do better?
Yeah. I think you know, I think the condo one is worth, you know, harping on a little bit, because you know, there's a lot of nitty gritty that can go into a good review of condo documents, and not all condo associations are built the same. Some of them are very well organized and prepared to provide information. With others, it's like pulling teeth. You know, attorneys feel your pain when we get to that point where we're requesting it, and you know, you guys are at the mercy of the HOA or the company that's managing the HOA. You know, it's wide ranging, right? Some are very well organized. They might have a link to a website and it's all ready to go. Others, it's all piecemeal. You know, one thing that's very common is amendments to condo docs or updates to the bylaws aren't necessarily available with the first version that was recorded at the Registry of Deeds maybe in 1984. You know, and now you're digging, and from an attorney's perspective, like, yes, we can jump on the Registry of Deeds, but what if there's 20 amendments? You know, pulling those amendments, reading through them, do any of them actually impact the unit or the condo association in a material way that my buyers will need to know about? That can become a grueling task. And also a little bit of back and forth between the attorneys, because from a seller's attorney's perspective, you might want the buyer's attorney and the buyer themselves to acknowledge receipt of all condo docs and that you're satisfied at this point in the process. Whereas from a buyer's attorney's perspective, you're saying, have you provided me with everything? And should I be satisfied here? Is there anything else that I should be asking for or that you're aware of? And so there's just a little bit of a back and forth there in the document, in the language of the purchase and sale agreement of what has been confirmed at this point and maybe what rights are reserved going forward towards closing. So I think the more diligence there, the better in the early going. What can be very helpful is a direct contact with the HOA association or the management company and getting them involved early. I've actually had one just last week where very cooperative attorney on the other side. But we had a tight timeline, of course. Wanted the purchase and sale done within 4 days, and a couple of questions to be asked by the buyers and by us, and the seller's attorney and listing agent trying to piece that together for us. And then what really helped then too was getting an email for the person who was responding at the HOA, just putting them on the chain, allowing the communications to be more streamlined. And then also, I guess, as a buyer, you feel like it's not being filtered or it's not a watered down response. It just is what the HOA is saying. It's a little bit more black and white. And if you have a follow-up question, you go right back with your follow-up question and hopefully get the most timely response possible. And again, maybe that's in the ideal world, and it worked out last week pretty well on that one. I know other management companies are hesitant or slow to provide information. I guess some don't like to overrepresent things if they don't have to, which to some degree might be fair. But you're also looking for transparency, and again, looking to make sure there's no big curveball down the road, like an unexpected assessment, or maybe a change in the bylaws. Is there something going on? There's meeting minutes that are indicating there's many discussions of something that needs to change in the future. Another thing that's very common is an HOA may not have been run very well for a few years, and now they're being run by a new management company who's cleaning up the mess. A big thing there can be financials. Are there reserves, or is there a debt being made up for? Are there loans? That's part of the scenario here. And so that's a great one, Greg. That really would be helpful to attorneys and buyers, because of course it's the buyers who need to know the nitty gritty there.
Do we have
yes.
other questions, or I know our time is getting toward the end, or a little bit, couple minutes past. Cheryl.
Hey, Joe, sorry I came in a little late, but I like how you itemized everything, and I think it would be helpful for me to make checklists for single family homes, checklists for condos, and actually at the meeting with the sellers, sit down with them and ask them before we even take the listing, and get you involved. Do you have checklists that you share with your clients, or you would be willing to share with us?
Yeah, I could certainly work to generate something for you.
All right, cool.
That'd be great.
Especially with the estates. I've been doing a lot of estates, it seems like.
Yes.
Well, you touched on some things that I haven't thought of. So yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Good to see you.
The dark champion. Board champion.
Anyone else have a question? I mean, I do have one. So in terms of you mentioned the process. So in states that have a two-step, an offer and a purchase and sale, is it better for you to be involved at the upfront before the offer is even submitted? So we know like what to put for contingencies and that kind of thing, or what do you recommend?
Yeah. So 9 times out of 10, you probably don't need the attorney involved quite yet. A little bit self-serving here, but as attorneys, happy to be generous with time, but it is tough if you were doing on an every transaction, that would become something that you would want to bill for, and there's obviously the questions, once you answer them, can go deeper, right? They can be deeper dives once you peel back a layer. So a little bit of that comes into play, but overall, I'm always happy to review an offer, especially if there's a particular contingency being discussed, maybe early access before closing, or a use and occupancy after closing, new construction scenarios, punch list or no punch list, a good example just recently I had with the new construction was we were able to, even though there was a difficult attorney, and by difficult, they were just doing their job. I just mean that they were, rigid. The seller themselves was actually much more flexible with some of the terms and situations. And what we did was we allowed 3 weeks before the PNS was signed to be extended, to allow the seller to actually make progress. And so my buyer felt better locking in their rate and anticipating move dates and things of that nature. And it did turn out that in those 3 weeks, the seller kind of said, okay, well, we're probably going to need an extra 6 weeks for closing. And that was really nice because it was friendly and it was kind of done right from the buyer's perspective, because now she's planning for a more realistic closing date. All parties stayed on board together, and we shared the same goal. They want to sell, we want to buy, we want a happy deal here. But that was a great example of cooperative work where agents and strategy maybe does or doesn't include the attorneys hashing that out. But to your point there, that was kind of a good example of where in the early going we did discuss, like, hey, and this is where in Massachusetts you have the offer and then you have the PNS stage. So a little bit of that was strategy, but it was also, good faith between the parties of just really wanting to be transparent and know we were getting involved in, and then actually giving the seller a lot of really good terms in general, but feeling really happy about what that meant for the buyer in the bigger scope of the transaction.
So I guess what I'm hearing is that it's much better when everyone cooperates and is reasonable and not crazy.
Well,
Yeah.
I also got out of that, Joe says, we're licensed agents or brokers. We're not licensed to practice law. Let him come up with the language.
100%. Yeah. And always happy to be a part of that conversation. And I think, part of that conversation too is like, what's reasonable in the market. And that's sometimes where I pick up the phone and, call the agent and say, hey, what's really being discussed here? Where do you think the pain points are? Or what's the breaking point? Holdback, how big of a holdback are we going to talk about? Will they be carrying costs if it's like a post-closing use and occupancy? So absolutely, more information, always the better.
Marie, did you have something?
Yeah, just Joe, I know like in New Hampshire, the actual forms, the New Hampshire Association of Realtors have come up with clauses that you can just plug and play. And I'm really jealous that they have those. I wonder if Massachusetts, we could get some attorneys to get together and create some plug and play language, for what should we put for an estate? What should we put for use and occupancy? What should we put for permitting? Whatever the standard clauses are. Because I know in Massachusetts, we don't have any of that. But yet it's an attorney state and we have so many resources of attorneys.
Well, yeah, interesting point, Marie. I think I look at that two ways. One, I do think that is helpful. I will say though, many times I get, an offer, which, in New Hampshire or some other states, you go straight to a purchase and sale agreement. And I see those contingencies. And then immediately I've got to unpack and get in touch with people and say, hey, but what does this really mean? Like, because I'm seeing the nuance then kind of behind those clauses. And, maybe to go even one step further, you have a title companies in New Hampshire where they don't take on the same roles in the same way as in Massachusetts, where a buyer's attorney is really a buyer representative and, is probably charging a fee in that capacity, or, maybe they are, maybe they're not. But in New Hampshire, you're really a title company taking over the transaction. You will go the distance to make sure, people understand what they're getting involved in. But from an actual obligation standpoint, we're not obligated in the same way. So my point is there, I think there are pitfalls. And I've seen some of those pitfalls play out. And the circumstances can all be very different in all different scenarios. But I'll give you just a very simple one. And you did make me think of a New Hampshire situation where there were contingencies for certain things, like title review done in like 5 days and inspection done in X number of days. And the question that becomes, like, who's tracking that? And, is that really reasonable? Like the one deal where I think it was a 5-day turnaround on a title review, where, you're not going to transfer a property without a clean title anyway. So, was that 5-day contingency? How do you look at that as an attorney and turn it around in 5 days? And what happens if you miss that deadline? Is it actually going to become a property that's going to transfer with a bad title? Like it didn't really add up. So there's kind of a couple of layers to that, and that was one example. Another example is a Rhode Island example, where straight to P&S, buyers were buying a nice property at, it was like a $1.6 million purchase price, nice neighborhood and all that, and they said that they would inherit the solar panels. What they didn't realize was that the solar panels weren't paid for, and there was 60 grand outstanding. And that was very unclear to them when the deal was signed. And then, of course, I'm like, okay, well, let me see the documentation here. Let's see, is this a transfer of a lease? Is it fully paid for? What are we looking at here with this solar situation? And then the buyers, of course, were surprised. Now, at the end of the day, in that particular deal, they moved forward because they really wanted to be in that particular neighborhood. The house, had value to them and beyond just the number. So, it worked out. But $60,000 is not something to brush away or to think of lightly. And in another situation, that could have been a whole complete blow up. And now, that's because you have no attorney, I think, looking at that ahead of time saying, well, what are we doing here? Okay, sure, you'll inherit solar panels. What does it actually mean? So that's a very good example. I think everyone can identify very easily, how that could lead to bigger stress then of what if the buyer wants out? Do they have the right to get out? Is their deposit at risk? And then, you have deeper questions that could come from that conversation. So sorry, Maria, that was probably the long answer to your question, but so I think it's good in some ways, but it certainly can have pitfalls. No question about it.
Well, it's going to be exciting to see. Are you going to be at the boot camp? Are you going to come up?
I don't know if I could do the boot camp, but definitely want to do the one in October.
How about axe throwing? Because you were a good dart thrower.
Yeah, more liability involved. Sorry, attorney brain. But yeah, no. Hopefully I can, and definitely the holiday party. And Greg, good to see you again, because we were at the dartboard as well.
Yes.
In the last
he was an ace. He was throwing bulls.
Well, we
a tough
appreciate you,
player.
Joe.
It was
And we
good and bad
appreciate-
games that day. So
Well, we do appreciate you, Joe. We appreciate you taking the time and sharing your expertise and being there for us when we need you. And if someone does want to reach out, how do we do that?
yeah, please, phone call, email is fine. Joe@stateralaw.com. Please, check out the website, stateralaw.com, and it does have links so that you can find me on there. Little information about other services we offer as well. But please don't be shy. I'm always happy to answer any questions, help you out, put people on the right road early. So
And I've
please.
been working with Joe for years, so I'm happy. If you forget his number, you can call me. I'll give you his number. So yeah,
Awesome.
Joe's
Thank
been
you.
great. I refer him many times, and I have no hesitation. He's one of the most detail-oriented attorneys, but yet still friendly, right? That Irishman friendly. So it's great.
All right. Well, thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Appreciate
And
that.
for those that can come to boot camp, we're excited to see you and share ideas. And I'm sure that we'll see everyone at a future networking event. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you,
everybody.
Michelle.